The Total War that everybody wants, but Creative Assembly refused to give it to us. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to some more Total War Shogun 2. We are diving in once again with the awesome Shot and Pike mod, and today I have an absolute banger of a replay for you guys to watch out. On the left-hand side, we have the forces of Sweden and France going up a bit against a united force of the Habsburg dynasty, aka the Holy Roman Emperor, and yeah, it's going to be just super fun. This mod is beautiful. It basically empowers everything I want from a Shot and Pike mod, and of course I am super excited to see the future of this mod as well, with the new improvements to being able to dramatically edit the campaign map, the massive Europe project that's currently being worked on by a group of modders. This will hopefully turn into utilizing that map and just going ahead and giving us such a awesome Shot and Pike game. Let's take a quick look at some of the units close up before the battle does fully erupt. As you can see, the Kingdom of Sweden over here on the far left hand side looks absolutely awesome with their musketeers. Behind that, we do have some pretty heavy pikemen as well, and then obviously backing them up, we are going to have the command staff and the artillery as well, again utilizing all the types of tactics, and I think it just works so well, as I mentioned, in Shogun 2, but it's going to be really cool. I also absolutely love the huge blocks of cavalry we have on the flanks as well, both sides going ahead and bringing a whole wealth of extra soldiers. Over here on the far right as well, the Kingdom of France, as the artillery starts to unleash, have brought up some skirmishers as well, placing down stakes to basically just protect their inner lines a little bit more. Some cannons obviously being brought up as well to get some decent shots across the battlefield, and the pikemen utilizing their strength to basically defend these guys as much as possible. The artillery does come in packs of 2-gun batteries, so again, you're going to be seeing these more maneuverable, kind of smaller gun batteries rather than the more Napoleonic, larger scale ones. And again, you can see them just firing off there down the line, looking very cool. Hopefully these ones will open up very soon to go and show us a beautiful volley, with more of the musketeers moving around and just big cavalry movements. A lot of the units are pretty similar, I would say, but again, you do see some nice nuances and differences in the units in general. Again, the flags are of course all going to be different as well, so again, we have some of the HRE soldiers looking very similar to their French counterparts, but there's going to be differences, new units that certain factions get access to, and you can already start to see the artillery. They're basically firing off. It seems like a direct hit ripped through this unit not 5 seconds ago. They are going to be trying to get their own revenge here, opening up a battery right here. I'm not sure actually how big these guns are. These 12-pounders, that's pretty big right for the period. But I guess as Napoleonic era warfare came in, it was more about mobility with the smaller pounders, whereas at this point it is just sitting down and just bombarding your opponent. And yeah, if you can hit a dense block of pikes, that's going to do a lot of damage here as well. I also really love the command staff as well, keeping these blocks together. Now, again, I always love, and again, massive shout out to Cassius for setting this one, as we actually get some volleys over here. A frontal contingent here from the HRE, bringing up a whole line here of musketeers, opening up on the defending Swedish right there as they return their volley. But yeah, I would say big shout out to Cassius and people who played in this. Again, they always come with some of the best replays, giving like formations and really good setups. Again, keeping this kind of formation right here of guns, you know, kind of encased by pikes, so the pikes can support wherever they need to if cavalry charges come in. This little kind of conclave attack right here by the HRE looks awesome. And right now, both sides are firing off. You can also as well see there are custom animations. This is this poor man. I don't think he's going to be long for this world. But again, you can see there's custom reload animations as well. And again, all this stuff is going to be, you know, improved upon as the mod gets more and more developed. Right now, though, the artillery is really causing some issues. We have also seen there is a unit of Habsburg cavalry here that could look for a charge against this artillery. I mean, they are facing off against them. They are also taking, I think, a couple fire or two. This would be a perfect chance, I guess, to come in, as the artillery for the French and the Swedish are encased by musketeers, so they could try to get in, but deciding to fall back. And I do think, for the most part, that, you know, the Habsburgs are going to be up against it in this battle. They're not necessarily going to have as much of an advantage. I think whoever really attacks in these battles are always going to be a slight disadvantage and have to try and pull something out of the bag, because whoever gets the artillery firing first is always going to do a pretty decent job, as luckily the artillery shells go flying over the heads of these dragoons, and luckily none of them finding a direct hit. It does seem though as well that the HRE are losing this artillery off right now as well. They're taking quite a bit of damage as the French now push up to get a little bit closer. A few muskets firing in the distance, and that's something I always love about Shogun 2. They do smoke effects so good, especially at distances as well. It just looks so good as the ripple fire comes off the smoke, dramatically moves off into the wind, and you just see the pikes moving slowly but surely off around in the distance to reform up, shore up their defenses, and keep the enemy at bay. And these blocks moving further and further forward. I'm surprised we haven't seen any movement here by the cavalry as the Swedish now make their way forward. Again, looking to obviously engage the blocks of infantry that are being pushed up with some spikes being put down. So this basically tells me, with the spikes being here, that the HRE are either going to commit to an all-out battle because they can't retreat through these. They can go through them, they can't retreat through them, or they're going to play very defensive. And it does seem that like the Swedish are now pushing up their own cavalry. Again, it could just be dragoons. Yeah, these guys are equipped with carbines, so able to get a nice little volley off there, try and scare off the enemy skirmishers, pushing them back. Skirmishers are going to be taking a shot back though, hopefully racking up a kill or two on them. They need to be careful as well, I guess. A lot of the heavier cavalry, more dragoons up here as well, firing back into the lines. On the extreme left flank as well, we are getting a big push here coming in. So it does seem like that the HRE on the far left are going to basically be giving up this flank and really looking to condense down in the center, try and maybe rip a hole in the middle, break the Swedish and the French line here, split them in two, and then kind of, wrap around and do as much damage as possible. We are getting a lot of kind of very passive play now, though, from both sides. As I say, neither side is fully committing to these battles, just letting the artillery do the damage, letting the muskets kind of just fire off and keeping these pikemen back in reserve. I say that, though, it does seem like the Swedish are now advancing forward, bit by bit, marching up, supported, of course, by their cavalry. And I guess this is really where you're going to want to try and make your positions, is going to be on the flanks, where you can support them effectively with this cavalry. Again, the dragoons are going to move up. Now, already be very careful here. The spikes are set up. But yeah, there you go. A big push here from the Swedish coming all the way around. Going to be trying to get some dragoon fire into the side. And there is no reaction right now. The Swedish are also pushing here with a lot of their cavalry. We're going to be getting any charges. These are more of the melee cavalry, I think, of them. These guys are equipped. Buffs are now being sent out, and there you go. The dragoons are firing. The cavalry are charging. Luckily, there is a block of infantry here that can be committed. The musketeers falling back, and these pikemen need to be sent in here. A great charge. However, immediately, the volley from the dragoons covering that position, able to send them back, and more HRE cavalry comes flying in. Over on this left-hand side as well, it does seem like the Swedish have fully committed to this battle, to their detriment, though. Being ill-supported is not going to help them out, and the HRE are now flying in. Look at them charge, sword raised as they go fly. I don't know where this guy's going. He's going back to the farm, I think. And that's been a real big blow there, losing that cavalry engagement, being pushed back again. Not huge casualties, though. Again, it's a lot of it was to do with morale. These units are going to come back. They're only taking a handful of casualties on that charge, so it wasn't dramatic. But they have also lost a few other units as the cavalry continues to run them down, which is going to be deadly. How are the rest of the infantry fights going? Again, both sides really maxing up. The HRE have kind of gone more in a screening formation here rather than having the blocks. They've kind of drawn a long line now of pikes supporting them in the back. However, they do leave themselves very vulnerable on this flank. This cavalry could start to wrap around and start putting pressure on the enemy line and have to, of course, cause some issues there. The HRE are also pushing up here with a nice little block of musketeers and pikemen who are now getting closer and closer. And I think they'll be looking to try and take out this artillery with more cavalry being pushed up. However, they are being hammered by the musketeers, but again are being brought up. And there you go, they're going to be falling back, almost giving up this artillery. Oh, did you guys see that? That was a brutal. A cannonball at that point blank range just ripped through them. That was insane. And there you go, some more of the melees. We'll see if we can get some good custom animations as well in here, because again, this mod does have tons of animations added into them as more of a buff. But yeah, this artillery position has been completely overrun, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some more soldiers reinforcing that. The Swedish are now pulling back after losing that cavalry engagement, realizing they can't really overcommit to that. But yeah, the HRE on the left flank are being super aggressive now, trying to overrun the defenses. Again, getting some good kind of hits off here on the enemy line. scaring off the musketeers. It's just such different gameplay, honestly, as the cavalry wraps around the flank, because you've basically got these big blocks of infantry that are slow and encumbrous, and being aggressive with them just lets the musketeers fall back, fire, fall back, fire, fall back, fire. And the deeper you go into your enemy's lines, the more likely you are to, again, get hit from the side, get cavalry coming in, getting hit by musket fire. So it really is just such a different engagement, say, to like Shogun 2 in vanilla. And you can see the pikes are now fully clashed right now. Both sides pushing up. Once again, more units coming up again. I think the artillery has just been overrun here. Oh my god, that's a lot of casualties. Did they rout maybe? Yeah, what happened here? Yeah, I think this unit of French actually shattered right there fully. And you can see the danger right there. You can also hear some of these Shogun 2 voices. Again, that is something that they plan on fixing relatively soon in the engagement. The artillery here as well from the Swedish is so close. If we get a good volley here, oh my lord. They need to reload a bit faster though. Here you go, one shot's going off. Ooh! Oh my! That was insane. The amount of damage that shot just did. And you can see that unit of pikemen are fleeing for their lives. They are no longer there. You can see them routing. The command staff, I think, are trying to rally them. A nice little volley here from the musketeers. Going to be trying to maybe rack up a kill or two on them. Musketeers here again going to be getting pushed back there, back through the ranks of their French counterparts as they reinforce here and take on the enemy units. Both sides are really trying to just rack up as many kills as possible. A lot of the musketeers are being thrown back. Obviously, being able to utilize that is going to be big. The French have completely wrapped around this flank, though, with all of their cavalry alongside the other musketeers as well, who can now start firing into the flank of this tightly packed pikeman unit. And one of the really nice things as well that the French are doing is they're also supporting these musketeers with their cavalry, so it's not like that the Habsburgs can actually charge these guys, and the cavalry can also fire over with their pistols, and of course with the other more carbine rifles as well that are on the rest of the dragoons as well. So it's actually not a bad move whatsoever as they continue to push in. And it seems that they've completely broken the French center here. It is gone. The musketeers are fallen back now, and they're able to get some good shots off on the pikemen. But again, the French line in the center here are just simply no more whatsoever. They are, yeah, definitely struggling there for sure. Yeah, you can just see the entire French line has been broken back. Speaking of which as well, it does seem like the Swedish are now facing overwhelming odds on this left flank. The cavalry, you know, firing in against one another and then having to pull back because they just, yeah, do not have enough numbers. And these blocks of infantry are under a lot of pressure now as more of the Habsburgs go further and further forward. That Swedish unit of pikemen are breaking. The volleys are coming in though. Again, the musketeers are able to get some really good shots off and able to do some decent damage along the battle line. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 volleys off there. And they're at this range as well. They're going to be doing good, but they're also taking fire of their own against the HRE musketeers as well. And this is not looking good for the anti-HRE alliance one bit. I would say they are definitely up against it here. However, the balance of power is still remaining pretty sturdy. I think the cavalry on the left flank is still looking pretty decent. And I wouldn't be surprised if we did see some sort of engagement as they do kind of hyperventilate the actual spikes. They could also decide to maybe bring some pikemen over here as well. Or do what the French were doing and bring some of their musketeers around here to then fire in on the cavalry, which would be pretty effective. You can also see over here as well some of the custom buildings as well that are being developed for the mod. Again, these are going to be really useful for more of the siege maps and city maps as well. So it's kind of cool to see them developed. Oh, and a big cavalry push here by the Habsburgs, able to get stuck in here. The Swedish do manage to repel this assault slightly, able to send a couple cavalry actually off the battlefield, but taking a handful of casualties on their own. Again, more blocks of infantry being pushed up the musketeers. Again, I really love the Swedish setup here as well and how they're kind of forming up their formation, starting to pull back there. Oh my god, how is this artillery not killed yet? The Swedish cannons are facing the wrong way. Turn around. Turn around. You need to. I guess the micro is heavily focused in on the cavalry flanks. And speaking of which, huge battle here for the horses. Both sides throwing in everything they have. I mean, look at that. You can see the custom animations of blood spurting from the weaknesses in their armor. And both sides just throwing everything they've got in to this battle, because honestly, whoever wins this engagement is really going to turn the tide of the battle itself. And we get a nice little glimpse out, and we can actually see who actually is winning it. More cavalry charges in, but it does seem like the French are overwhelming the HRE cavalry, which is pretty effective. They also have some musketeers who I think were firing in. So even though the French are now just running away basically with their musketeers and then firing in and basically just playing a nice little skirmish off with the HRE pikemen, who I guess they've lost most of their musketeers because they can't really challenge this whatsoever. But this is still, taking away a large portion of their army. But also, I'm surprised we're not seeing any pikemen committed to this fight. Because if maybe we had 1 or 2 pikemen blocks reinforcing this cavalry, it wouldn't have gone so bad for the HRE, but they were just absolutely demolished on that flank. Now, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, both players actually committing more cavalry over onto the Swedish flank, for example, because it does seem like they have a bit more cavalry on this side of the position. That's one of the reasons why they are winning it. So maybe that's why, again, they just got absolutely decimated by the French line, as we get some more musket fire here with the solid positions of the pikemen. Now, I actually don't know, and I'm sure you guys can let me know in the comments, if the pikemen actually have formations as well. I believe there are formations in the mod itself. But yeah, I don't know if these guys can form like a square or anything else along them lines. I would assume so, because that stuff is actually already in, I believe, yeah, already in the Fall of the Samurai DLC. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was already in, as the musket fire goes back off again, looking beautiful. The HRE utilizing their number advantage on this flank, pushing up. The pikeman block getting very close. I mean, these riflemen, or musketmen, I guess, are very, very close into the enemy line. So they're going to be able to, kind of utilize that close range to do some serious damage. And the pikemen really holding their own. Yeah, good volley fire. But it's not like the Swedish are giving up again. They are firing. It'd be interesting to see. It'd be cool if we could see exactly what they were choosing to fire at. If they're trying to take out the muskets, or if they're firing directly into the pike block and trying to get rid of that. I mean, again, you can see just how brutal Shogun2 actually is. Like, it really does go above and beyond with them death animations, and they look great. How did the right-hand side? That is a lot of French cavalry. That is a lot of French cavalry. Luckily, they still have some pikes and some muskets kind of warding off that cavalry. But that is still a lot of French muskets on top of them horses. And the Habsburg artillery is now shifting over as well. The French have managed to rally, but again, they're lacking pikes. They really are. They have all their muskets, but they basically have no pikes. They just have cavalry and muskets, which isn't a bad problem, because again, the muskets aren't really that vulnerable because the enemy doesn't have cavalry to go and charge them down. That's the whole point of the pikes, is to basically protect your glass cannons, your musketmen. Yeah, that looks great, doesn't it? The battlefield. Shogun2 allowing you to zoom all this way out. You can really see the sheer size and scale of an engagement like this. As the cavalry is making more maneuvering as well, pushing in here. Again, a lot less charges, a lot more skirmishing, I think, in a game like this. The combat is always going to be a slightly bit slower. But I like that both sides aren't just staying at max range. They are pushing up close, obviously. Both sides seemingly thinking they have the advantage at close range. Can't imagine that these muskets are going to be terribly accurate at longer ranges, so the closer you get, the better. Oh, the Swedish are able to push up this unit of pikemen again. Actually, sorry, this is HRE pikemen. It is a little bit hard to tell because the units are kind of very similar. Again, another pretty defensive block pushing up. The pikemen supported by the muskets, and there you go. The HRE are now fully committing here. Able to get some really nice hits off here on this vulnerable unit of muskets. And again, it's going to be, again, like, this whole gameplay loop is just so different, right? You have to be so careful. Luckily, they can still volley in right there. But I'm going to want to be very aggressive there, pushing in. And like the whole microing of this game, like Shogun2 is a fairly fast game, to be honest. So the whole microing is going to be really interesting. And there you go. The cavalry is just doing exactly what it needs to do, ripping. I would not be surprised if this unit of musketeers got absolutely sent off the field because of pike. Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. There you go. There's a nice little square formation. That's what we wanted to see. They are completely surrounded now by cavalry, but able to hold the line. So yeah, as you can see, cool custom squares. I imagine the Spanish square looks very, very strong. But again, now they are just really vulnerable to the dragoons because they don't have any musketeers supporting them. You know, normally that would be a good way to dissuade these guys. This cavalry would be having musketeers firing in. Oh, do they? Oh, no, they do have musketeers. A very depleted unit of musketeers, but again, a unit of musketeers there. So again, that's really cool, kind of seeing that work in that formation. That's really cool. Really, really cool. I like that a lot. As more infantry and cavalry do clash, the HRE are now committing more of their pikes to this, which again is good. And as the French pull out of this, obviously wanting to avoid that fire, they're going to lose soldiers as they pull out of there. A horse going down as well. Brutal stuff. And there you go, the HRE fully committing on this right-hand side, able to basically push the Swedish back. The pikes engaging fully. The other blocks of infantry pushing around them, looking to get closer and closer and obviously harass the Swedish as they fall back. You don't want to let them get out there for free. And a lot of the HRE cavalry being pushed up. You see a unit of cannons, they are long gone there with their 5-pounders. A real back and forth on the battle. Like, for one side, it seemed like, you know, the HRE were dominating against the Swedish, and then the French cavalry really held their own, losing their pikemen, but the muskets doing a great job. You can also see as well just how, like, you know, long these blocks do last. Shogun 2 is a very fast game, so seeing them slowing down combat, and I guess kind of the lethality of the muskets is going to be very different to, say, you know, kind of Shogun 2 with them katanas, as another volley comes into the densely blocked lines of the HRE musketeers. But they are losing then, and they are starting to rout. Again, the French are arriving. The French cavalry have also come over here to actually reinforce the Swedish on this flank. But I don't know. It does seem like that they have a lot of cavalry still left alive. They are pushing up. They're probably trying to get their muskets in range, fire in, and just help support this kind of back and forth with the mounted cavalry. The HRE infantry, though, is just being so aggressive, pushing closer to the enemy lines. Whenever they see a break in that battle line, they obviously push up and exploit it, utilizing their musketeers perfectly. But we are going to be getting a pike block here, though. Some pushes here by the Swedish. They are going to be met, though, again with the enemy line. Luckily, they're able to go ahead and pin out some of these other soldiers on the flank, though. Musketeers, this small block, are going to be getting hit. And they've kind of come in at an angle, so the musketeers can still fire in and help. However, it does also leave themselves very vulnerable. You can see immediately these musketeers train their weapons over there. The support staff just prancing their way over to the battlefield to help give some buffs and some extra morale. But yeah, these musketeers now going to close in and do some real good damage. This is exactly what they are designed to do whilst the infantry are engaged. Now, yeah, it's going to be a point-blank volley into the side of them once they reload. And we should start seeing a lot of the Swedish pikemen going down. Oh, and it does seem like the Swedish front line is now just completely crumbling. The entirety of the French cavalry is here to basically warn off any charges. We are going to be getting a charge, though, as the Swedish, I guess, kind of get desperate and look to try and inflict some serious damage, but are immediately repelled from the incoming musket fire. It seems like Sweden is basically done for. However, the French still have some pretty healthy blocks of musketeers left remaining. All of these infantrymen have ammunition left. They're tired, but so would I be after fighting for so long, as the volleys come in once again. And they also still have the cavalry as well. The cavalry, the French probably have enough cavalry to break this and then wrap around. There are a few Swedish units kind of trying to cause some mayhem. I'm surprised we're not seeing more cannon, though. The cannon was really aggressive early on and then kind of just faded out pretty quickly from both sides. I think the Swedish were heavily focused in on, like, counter-batterying, and they just meant that the Austrian, or I guess HRE, cannon couldn't get stuck in. They only really have 4-pounders as well. We saw a couple 12-pounders, but again, only 4-pounders really left remaining. And this battle's going to come down to whether or not the cavalry can win on one side. It's super close. That balance of power bar is really, really close. Because I think, honestly, the French cavalry could sweep this. They need to deal with the pikemen. If they can get rid of this unit of HRE pikemen, then the cavalry could really come in and sweep and clear this up. I say that, though, we do also have some melee cavalry as well. Some German mercenary Ritter. These guys look pretty decent. So that's kind of, I guess, supporting the Dragoons as much as possible. Saying that, it does seem like the Swedish have been able to rally, and again, with the support of that French cavalry, they don't necessarily need their pikemen. The pikemen are there to kind of just scare off cavalry. And the fact that they just have they have the cavalry advantage, and all of these muskets can just fire at will into the HRE line, is doing a pretty decent job. And you can see the formations are just a mess right now. The only thing, I guess, really stopping them is the French not wanting to overcommit to this cavalry fight. Everything else is seeming pretty dire for them. You know, the fact that the Swedish could rally and kind of form this pretty decent line is going to come in absolute clutch. The French have also been able to set up some musket support on this left-hand side. Musketeers reinforcing and able just to basically add an extra 120 muskets, you know, firing in on the HRE cavalry pretty effectively. Oh no, the flag bearer went down. Oh no, someone else pick up that flag and drive it to the front. But I think this is looking pretty good for the Swedish and the French now. They just have the tools to kind of close out this battle very aggressively. And the HRE are kind of just, you know, they have the pikemen, but they have no reason to use the pikemen. There's not a lot of muskets left to support them. There's a lone cannon moving around for whatever reason. And the cavalry is just dwindling. They're losing this engagement pretty heavily. And here we go. We're starting to see a bit of a desperation play now. The musketeers and the pikemen are just being pushed completely forward now. This is really their last-ditch effort. More cavalry is coming over here to help support this. The French line is, again, just kind of shooting in, focusing down the pike blocks and sending them packing. And yeah, I think this is going to be really the last-ditch effort right here. And all the Swedish have to do is pull back and harass. Granted, they are very close to the red line, so they need to be a little bit careful. But again, these guys can fall back. They can fire in on the pike blocks. And as they get further and further forward, they just kind of come into this trap with more soldiers supporting them. Oh, it does seem like a little bit of missed micro. No, actually perfect micro there. Losing a couple men, but just about. And I think the HRE, yeah, just going to kind of overcommit to this. More cavalry ripping through that line. Beautiful. And, you know, if these guys turn, and immediately they get shot by other units. And even that mercenary German Ritter as well are unfortunately losing to the heavier cavalry of the French, who have honestly done absolute amazing damage this battle. I've got to say, they've done a really good job. And I think maybe the Swedish will. I mean, actually, maybe they can hold. Maybe the French cavalry can hold. They've kind of got their pound of flesh as more cavalry is reinforcing. I mean, maybe this battle isn't over. I feel like the French still have plenty of reserves left in this entire musket line. Still firing hard as more cavalry come flying into the battle. And they are, you know, the HRE are also supported by these pikemen who are now committing everything they've got to this fight. But honestly, all they have to do is just make sure they kill as much as possible. And I think that's exactly, you know, again, what they're doing. The shots just kind of ricocheting off the frontal armor, and as they flee, yeah, taking a brutal volley there. So a really nice last-ditch effort there, and they did a pretty good job at kind of holding that line, but I just don't think it's gonna be enough. The cavalry still doing an amazing job there over on the left-hand side, and there's still all this extra cavalry left remaining. And again, the muskets, oh, I say that by the HRE coming in. Again, really nice play there by the French cavalry, just supporting that where they're needed. The musket fire here, again, just constantly harassing, supported by the cavalry behind. And you've still got this entire flank as well set up. So, you know, really nice moves there. A good last-ditch effort push there by the HRE. It's just not going to be enough now. And the Swedish are going to be able to rout them off the field and claim a victory. Man, that battle, a bloody victory indeed. That battle was absolutely awesome. I've got to say a big shout out to everybody who played in that battle. You guys did a great job of representing some pike and shot gameplay. It was awesome. The blocks of infantry, the back and forth, super cool. So yeah, big thank you to everybody who did dive in and play it and sending it my way. I do appreciate it. If you guys want to see more Shot and Pike on the channel, do let me know. I'd be more than interested to maybe cover another replay, or if there's any other Total War mods you really want to see, let me know down below in the comments. Give a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more strategy gaming, and I'll see you guys in the next one.